Okay. Hey, everyone. Welcome. I know as a few of you are starting to trickle in, we have an amazing session for you today. I'm so incredibly excited. It's a topic that we all have asked ourselves, whether we were in sales or marketing, but it's all about why marketing can't get us enough good leads as sellers. No, I'm kidding. That's not what we're going to talk about today. Surprise!
This is a surprise session for me.
So we've got all of you marketing folks hostage today. No, We're so excited. This is going to be an amazing session brought to us by a team over at Freshworks. We are talking all about how to actually make sales and marketing work in your company. How does that alignment work? How does that relationship work? So as we are waiting for everyone to kind of jump in, on the bottom column, you're going to see the beautiful chat box. Make sure, one, that your chat is turned to panelists and attendees. And then also tell us where you're coming from. I am coming from a beautiful day in Fort Worth, Texas. No more snow here. Steve, where are you coming from?
Philadelphia, right outside of Philadelphia. It's not too bad.
Not too bad. The infamous question, Pat's or Geno's?
Oh, Steve Steaks, which is not me, by the way. It's a different place, but it just happens to have the same name as me.
Coincidence or causation? Who knows? And Brogan, where are you coming from?
I am in Ponte Vedra Beach, Florida, which is a suburb of Jacksonville, between Jacksonville and St. Augustine.
So absolutely beautiful, of course, as we can see all the sunshine coming in through your windows. We've got some people coming from Canada, from Colorado. Katie, I want to hear from you. Where are you coming from? Matt, what about yourself? And also, as we're getting started, Perry, one of my favorite places to visit. James, nice to have you here from Denver, Costa Rica. This time last year, I had just come home from surf and sales in Costa Rica. So it was pretty crazy going from a beautiful beach and fabulous rum to sitting at home. A lot.
That was the same time last year? That was about a year ago?
Exact same time. I was just coming back from Costa Rica. Yep. So a little crazy, that's for sure. But we want to hear from you. What is your role? So are you an account exec? Are you an SDR? Are you a VP? Are you a sales enablement manager? Are you a sales director? Drop that. Diego, we've got a CRO. That's fabulous. Marketing. Drop that in the chat. We want to make sure that our conversation today is super geared towards you. And if it's mostly sellers, we can just beat up on marketing. And if it's mostly marketing, we can just beat up on how sellers never qualify leads as best as they can be. So let's look at that. We're excited for this. We're going to get started here in a little bit. Okay. New logos, Foster City, California. Welcome.
Got a lot of sales. I'm a sales guy at heart, just masquerading.
CMO, so let's just take that with a grain of salt.
Yeah. I'm masquerading as a marketer right now, but I've been a sales guy my whole life.
As they say, isn't everybody in sales at the end of the day? At some point, right?
At some point, yeah. We've all done it. Yeah, drop your LinkedIn links. Let's connect with each other. We're about to get started here. Brogan, I don't know if you want to throw up the first slide. But once again, we are so excited. This is going to be an amazing session. Just a few housekeeping rules. First off, if you're unable to stay the whole time, no worries. You're going to get a recording within the first 24 hours of this event. Also, make sure, once again, that your chat is turned to panelists and attendees. We are going to be giving away some Sales Hacker swag. So we've got all new swag. Super excited about it. Some were influenced by the Chili Piper swag, so we're even more excited about that. But we're giving out swag to the most engaged. So we want to hear your comments. We want to see your questions. Drop it into the chat. We also have that beautiful box at the bottom that says Q&A. We are going to be moderating that the whole time. So make sure that you've got questions going in all the areas so we can make this as fun and exciting. But most importantly, we want you to be able to take away information that you can use today. Yes, Diego, we do ship to Costa Rica. We ship globally. So make sure that you're staying engaged, you're asking great questions. And this is going to be really fun. This hour is going to fly by. So as we get started here, my name is Katie Ray. I am the community manager and events manager over at Sales Hacker. I have two absolutely fabulous rock stars next to me. Steve, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself.
Yeah, my name is Steve Pacinelli. I'm the CMO over at BombBomb, and BombBomb makes it easy to get face-to-face with more people more often through simple video messages.
Awesome. We are a big fan of BombBomb. I'm sure many of you have heard of them. Similarly, we are also huge fans of Freshworks. So Brogan, if you want to tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Hello, everybody. My name is Brogan Taylor. I have been with actually, that's a question I'd love to ask the group is what stage companies are you all at, right? We might have some Series A through some very late stage through publicly traded. But I have experience leading and building sales organizations through a variety of different company sizes and stages. And so I thought this was a very appropriate topic today because it really adjusts based on where you're at in that journey. So Brogan Taylor with Freshworks, great to meet everybody.
So one of the things that we're going to really be talking about, I guess, is this common theme of sales and marketing alignment, also known as cross-functional alignment, right? Now, I know that you guys have at Freshworks just kind of did a bit of some research. Nothing's public quite yet. The whole survey is going to be made public soon. Keep an eye out on your email for that. But talk to us a little bit about maybe what you've learned, and then we'll kind of go into some main key takeaways that all of you can take home today.
Yeah, great. So it's actually the largest study ever published, is my understanding, on the topic of specifically sales and marketing alignment. It was a global study across different company phases, different titles and roles, really studying the impact of sales and marketing and where are the areas that we can focus to improve that. So simplifying what tends to be a very complex equation at most companies. I know a lot of CROs, VPs of sales, sales leaders get into a certain situation, take a survey of the land, and immediately recognize that this part of the equation needs some love, right? And so for us, this was how to really understand what are the issues through these surveys, what are the most common issues, and how can we simplify that so we have a plan of action to correct those. And that's really what it's about. I think it goes without saying, these are the major impacts of those. Of course, revenue growth, why we're all in it. Understanding job performance, right? The roles and responsibilities of not just each department, but of each role, right? When you look at BDR roles and of course, marketing roles and sales roles and opportunity conversion, how does that all link together and how do we understand where we're performing? And ultimately, how does that result in a better customer experience as you go throughout the entire journey? And you'll hear us talk a lot about this today. This is not a new topic, but obviously sales doesn't start with an initial page impression. It goes all the way through onboarding, all the way through being a customer, all the way through that upsell, cross-sell, and that customer experience, that entire 360-degree customer experience, in which you have a lot of different people that need a lot of different customers. You're going through that to really have that unified alignment. And by the way, of course, sales and marketing should be aligned throughout all of that, which is, of course, one of the findings. It seems obvious, but how do we actually do that? So that's what we'll focus on today. Any comments? Other panelists here to add to that?
That was a great intro, Brogan. No, I think we get to the 5 key findings, because that was the most interesting part as we went through. From my end is like what's in the study, because I just got to see it for the first time earlier this week, and you got some good stuff there. Yeah, great. Okay, let's go. We'll go forward, and I think what we'll do is in the webinar version, are you all able to have video? I should have asked this. So everyone has video, or should I kind of come back to get so we have video on certain questions? I know it's more engaging with video sometimes.
Yep, we're good.
You're good. Okay, we're good. All right, here's the book. Again, coming out soon. It'll be delivered to your inboxes. We won't spend time on that, but worth a read. Let's go ahead and take a poll. I actually don't have it teed up in the polling. Let's go ahead and do it interactively through the chat, if we could. Let's start with this poll. To what degree are your marketing team KPIs aligned to your goals? Go over to chat here as well.
More A's.
Yeah.
Than I thought.
That's good. I would love to hear some of this conversation as we go through it. A lot to learn from everybody. Lots of B's. I've been in lots of situations where it's been C, and that's part of our roles is to help get it up to B or A, hopefully to A. Okay, lots of B's. Intactus B's, good answer. All right. Most of my clients are C's. I wonder if John's a consultant. All right, great. Well, let's go ahead and let's talk about this first topic. So this was key finding number 1. Again, we're just going to go through to simplify this 5 key findings and have discussions around those. And if you take nothing else away, it's just those 5 key findings, and hopefully we'll leave us some conversations, some better ideas of how to solution those areas. 90% of respondents think sales and marketing goals should be aligned, but only 44% believe their teams are highly aligned. I should have known with the Revenue Collective that we would be better than the 44%. Lots of B's and A's, so that's good. But let's take a second and talk about this one. I guess maybe a question to the team here. Why do you think this is? Where do we start with that?
Well, I just think in practice, it's difficult, right? You need to have a supreme amount of trust in one another. And, at BombBomb, every leadership team member at BombBomb read the 5 dysfunctions as a team. And it's not just for sales and marketing together, it's for the entire company. And, the 5 dysfunctions of a team, are trust. If you don't have trust in one another, it's common goals and making sure that your goals are aligned and people are bought into the goals. And then it's a commitment toward whether it's a goal or a commitment just to, even if you don't agree with something, committing to moving forward with that particular plan. Constructive conflict and holding peers. I'm surprised I got them all. Holding peers accountable. And so those are the 5. And that's right out of the 5 dysfunctions book. Those are the 5 key elements of getting your team aligned. Because if you trust in one another and you believe in one another and you understand one another, it's so important. I think another element there that really helped us overall as a team is the personal side, the personal relationship with sales and marketing and CS and all the different departments. It might be hokey. But we do our quarterly leadership meetings, and in some of those meetings, we do like the trust conversations, like you see those like trust falls. We don't do the trust falls and things like that, but we have deep conversations, not just about business, but I know our VPs of sales. I know his kids' names. I know the sports that they play. I know about his childhood, and just having that type of trust and that type of relationship with the other half, the other side is so important in getting your teams aligned. Because if you can have those open conversations, if you can have the tough conversations, if you can provide the tough feedback, and they know that it's coming from a place of helpfulness and of love, for lack of a better word, then that's how you're going to get your teams aligned, amongst all the other things that we're going to talk about here in a few moments.
Well, and I think you said something really interesting too. And if we really get to be honest with ourselves about this, it's about much more than just a normal relationship, right? It's so much more than just, our goals are aligned, but like, what are your real goals? We all have these goals and metrics, OKRs, KPIs, whatever that we have to hit. But what else are you working towards? And how else can we best support each other, right? So it's not just here's our goals and here's their goals, but how are we making sure that our goals are in collaboration with each other, and that what sales accomplish helps marketing accomplish theirs, and what marketing does and accomplishes helps sales accomplish theirs too. And I'm not surprised at this. Actually, in fact, I'm surprised that it's not a higher number of people that don't believe their teams are actually aligned. Because if you just look at LinkedIn and you see everyone, our leads aren't qualified enough, or they keep having us do all these events and they're just wanting quantity versus quality, and there's all these things that, you know, the sellers, like, how often do we see marketing actually ask salespeople, hey, you know, I knew that I sprung this cooking event for you and your prospects with 3 weeks and had you come up with a list of 500 prospects, and I was disappointed that only 20 showed up. Why, you know, instead of saying like, why didn't you do this, right? Why didn't you drop your cold calling that you're required to make 120 calls a day and focus on promoting this event?
Right.
Instead of that, what if we said, hey, what would be something that you would want to see? What would you think be successful, and why do you think that? And then how do we work on that together?
But that's like doing something like that, open lines of communication are required. So, so as a leader, if you're a leader on here, we need to create the space for that type of communication to happen on a regular basis. It has to be scheduled into the day-to-day workflow, or not necessarily day-to-day, but at least week-to-week workflow. There has to be opportunities to communicate, to connect, to be together, whether it's on Zoom or when we can finally do it in person. But to go one step higher, and this might not be popular, but this is just personal here at BombBomb, what really, really helped us is I compensated our folks in marketing that are in our VSB, very small business, SMB, and mid-market and enterprise business. I compensated our marketing folks off the same exact goals as the sales folks. And I'm not gonna lie, at first, Laura, you know, came and she's like, I don't like this. Like, what if I do all these, you know, generate all these leads and you know, and they don't sell them? But that's not going to generate alignment, right? Leads that don't close aren't going to help anyone out. And so Laura gets compensated on the sales in the same exact way that the sales team gets compensated. So that creates the alignment between marketing and sales, because she's not going to get paid the same way if they don't perform her job. So she's going to facilitate those meetings. She's going to ask those questions. She's going to make sure that sales has what they need. She's going to be open to feedback from sales, and sales will be open to feedback from marketing, because there is a finite destination. This is where we're going, and this is the number that we're going to hit.
Yeah, no, I think all that's, I love that, by the way, that you mentioned that in one of the earlier calls that we had, that compensation alignment all the way through. Always a controversial one, but it makes sense, right? It's connecting the dots all the way through. Yeah. The other thing, I think a really simple point that we all miss in this, or that sometimes can go awry, is just shared definitions, right? Like what is a real opportunity? And believe it or not, you know, I see a lot of organizations that a marketing department might believe they're providing what they need in the form of leads, but those leads, and this could also go to that compensation alignment, don't really turn into opportunities, or the definition of what an opportunity is actually different slightly to maybe the sales team or to a certain segment than it is to the marketing team. It sounds super obvious, but if all the definitions have to be really aligned and really clear and really KPI based. Yeah. If you have that, you've got the core infrastructure. That's always where I start, is do we have definitions? Do we have shared KPIs that everybody's speaking the same language and taking throughout the customer life cycle? Yeah.
Absolutely. And, you know, we've got a really good question from John, and I think it's pretty insightful too, is what do we think about the long-term nature of marketing goals versus the short-term nature of sales goals, and how that could contribute to this gap of understanding?
Steve, I'll let you take that one. Yeah.
Well, I don't know if there's a clean cut answer to that one. There's a fine balance, that's for sure, because they are, you know, marketing, obviously, most of the, I wouldn't say obviously, but a lot of the time is looking a bit more long-term than like the numbers that we're going to hit, you know, this month. But, you know, if you do change some of the compensation, like I talked about, you know, then you're going to have people worried about right now, and people worrying about how to be successful for the future, or at least part of their time worried about how to be successful in the future as well. I don't know if there's a clean cut answer, and I'd love to see anyone else's opinion. You know, of course, we talked about this before. Just because we're on the panel, we're here to facilitate and get some of the great responses from the people watching the event here too. So,
and you know what, Meredith posted in here too, sales, in Meredith's opinion, sales can have a longer term goal than marketing, because of some of this like long-term relationships. But I think kind of back to what you're saying, Brogan, it's really defining what these goals are, right? So are we talking about our daily goals of 100 plus calls and 5 million emails and 300 LinkedIn connection requests and 20 videos and all these things? Or are we talking about, you know, the actual sales cycle? And whenever we break it down to that, what industry are we talking? Are we talking SMB? Are we talking mid-market? Are we talking enterprise space, right? Because I think oftentimes, at least for me, when I was in enterprise sales, it was easier to have a better relationship with marketing because I needed a long-term process. I needed long-term nurture campaigns, and I'm working 8 to 12 month sales cycles. So I wonder, you know, I'd be curious what your guys' thoughts are on that as well.
Brogan?
Yeah, I mean, so that's right along the lines of what I was thinking. So I don't want to jump the gun too much, but one of the other findings we'll just say has to do with shared strategic planning, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But to me, I think a lot of that that long-term versus short-term balance at the leadership levels, and hopefully if it's infused properly throughout the organization across all of the sales teams, it's shared. So I'll give a very candid example, right? Freshworks really started SMB, moved really quickly up in the middle market, and is moving aggressively and well up into the enterprise. So for me, when I'm sitting organizationally and talking with my marketing team, we're talking about enterprise positioning, enterprise brand awareness, enterprise CSAT scores. These are really long-term things, but we're getting on the same page with those first, as building almost the brand of the segment aligned with the brand of the company. And I feel like it's making sure that everybody in the different parts of marketing, right, whether it's media, brand, product, are all completely aligned, and then that helps us have an intertwined go-to-market strategy throughout that can be short and long-term combined, including customer marketing, by the way.
Well, and I think something too, I think both of you have really hit on this, almost this essence, I wouldn't even really call it a theme, but this essence of what is your company's culture?
Yeah.
Are you creating it's so much more than just our goals the same, but are you creating an environment where these relationships are not only happening but actively encouraged, right? So I think both of you have talked about like making a space for this. So how are you making sure that whenever you're onboarding new reps, that there's this expectation as well of like, this is just what the culture is. We work together very closely. So I think that's something important to look at as well. We also have a question coming from Laura. As you are changing your target market from SMB to mid-market enterprise, any tips on handling being relevant to large companies when the majority of your customer base are SMB?
I feel like we're getting into the strat. Well, I feel like I'm on one of Sam's podcasts. Like I'm gonna say, this is a whole podcast topic for one of Sam's. So no, it's all good. I love it. I'll just tell you quickly that the general notion is that companies either start top enterprise and then can move down, or they can start enterprise and move up. I've always appreciated building the product mass market SMB and moving up. It seems like a very good motion and a pretty natural motion as you tend to get into it. What I would say is that for us, it tended to start, we have an incredible product machine and we have a great product market fit and a great TAM. And so it felt like this incredibly, I'll call it organic pull. We were being pulled up into it. So we started it was like the market was telling us when we had product market fit. Now, how that relates to our marketing, yes, there's conversations that we have about how we position. Candidly, there's conversations about certain web pages I might not like on the website that we might want to retool a little bit, maybe a specified enterprise deck, things like that. But generally, it's aligned because it's an organization-wide goal that we want to keep going with the market flow up market as our customers are taking us there. We want to be there to meet that demand properly.
Yeah, and that obviously comes from, leadership. Leadership needs to decide on we have our 3-year goals, we have our 1-year goal, and then we have our quarterly goals. And those need to be as clear as possible to each leader on the team, which will help you. We're in transition, Laura, with that question. We've had we call it VSB, very small business, for a decade, for a very long time, real estate agents and insurance, and for quite some time. And we've been transitioning over the past couple of years, to SMB and mid-market and enterprise, and, creating brand new ICPs is probably the best thing, in making sure those ICPs are distributed and everyone has a say in the ICP. From interviewing marketing to interviewing sales, the AEs, the BDRs, looking at your current database of the people that you do have coming in that are SMB and mid-market, support, doing customer surveys, G2, intent, and just gathering all of that data, together, but making sure that everyone has feedback in who your ICP is, so you can go after that new group.
It's a good one from Diego, sales and marketing alignment. So I'll just read it out loud, if that's all right with everybody. Anything you can mention on sales and marketing alignment when company is in a new market, robotics as my real life example, where lots of experimentation on outreach has to be. Whew, that's a good one. Where lots of experimentation on outreach has to be. Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, I think that comes down to having a clear customer journey, which I have a couple, I'll share a customer journey map just to give you guys some insight, because if you don't know what people are sending and what they're doing, and you don't know the results of what they're sending and doing, then you can't make decisions as a one team, as a one unit. And so there's going to be a lot of experimentation and trying new campaigns and new messages, but not only new messages, it's robotics. I was thinking about from a SaaS perspective, I was thinking about the onboarding and the product, which would be for us. But I think just having a clear understanding of what's happening and when it's happening. And we do it off of this board, which we can bring up later, which is in another key finding here. And Brogan, you talked about, having common goals, which is, if you want to go to key finding number 2 there, make sure that we get a chance to get through them all.
Yeah, good point.
And have alignment. I'm not suggesting by any means whatsoever that we do this perfectly, because we don't, but we've been evolving for so long in alignment and goals and objectives. And I forget who it was. You can chat it into the chat box there, who said daily stand-ups. Daily stand-ups have been, I didn't like them when I first got here 6 years ago. When I first started, I'm like, daily stand-ups, that sounds awful. That has been the best thing that we've ever done. And our first hour of our day is literally if you're in multiple teams, you're in multiple 15-minute stand-ups. You could be in 3, usually 2 stand-ups. And so all the teams meet, and then they go into the next stand-up, the next level up. And then those leaders meet, and then they go to the next stand-up, which is usually the leadership meeting. And so there's a constant flow of information. And if you don't mind, can I share my screen real quick, Brogan?
Please, yeah.
I will, I'll share. I took our stand-up board because I thought it might be interesting for people to see. And if you guys have a stand-up board that you use each day, or metrics that you talk about each day, I'd love to connect on LinkedIn and see what you're doing. And of course, keeping the information private. So I took a copy of our stand-up board, which has our goals and our objectives on it. And I just put in fake information. So by the way, this is not real, but you can get a picture of what we do. And this is how we have that sales CS marketing alignment, because this is the funnel right here. We call it's the bow tie funnel that we go by, and orange is marketing. And these are the website traffic prospects into VSB marketing qualified leads or marketing qualified accounts, depending on the size of the business here. And then that goes into our new units, New logos down here for SMB and mid-market, which goes into our totals for sales. Again, these are the percentages would all be real, and you'll see we have percentages of how it filters down. These are all inaccurate because I just put in random numbers. But it gives us a nice view of where everyone is. Like, accountability is so huge in having a one team. And if you show up every day and you have to report on your numbers every day, and every day I report on the orange and the purple numbers over here, then you're accountable for what you're doing. And it's not to say, hey, you're not doing your job. It's for the rest of the team to look at it and say, how can we help? Where can, it seems like you're not hitting your numbers. Where can we help? What can we do? And that's exactly what happens. I was afraid that wasn't going to happen when I joined, but being able to have a clear understanding of even our development teams numbers. These are their sprints down here on the bottom. How many points did they take on? Are they hitting their sprint numbers? Again, the product numbers aren't here because I removed them, but how are customers doing with the product? How is our CSAT and ticket volume? Everything is here on a single board to view. So I just thought it would be interesting to share if anyone has their stand-up meeting boards or anything. I'd love to have personal conversations, after the event.
That thing's a work of art. I like that.
It's a long time, and we have a lot of work to do, but as we continue to hone it in, like, it's a 15-minute meeting and everyone knows what's going on.
Yeah. No, that's great. No, thanks for sharing. Questions or comments on that?
Yeah, so we actually have a good question from Jim. Does it help having sales and marketing report into the same leader?
We don't have that here, but I can see the value and the benefits.
I think it depends on the size of the company, and it depends on the level of. They are two disciplines that can be incredibly complex. Mm-hmm. That are full-time studies to make sure that you're executing on each avenue, right? Each position within the company. It's a really tough one. I think it's context specific to the company. I've seen marketing roll up into like a CRO type at certain companies, and if that CRO has a really diverse background in at least one or the other, like they might be an expert at marketing but plenty dangerous in sales to where they know enough to make sure that is congruent, it works. If you have somebody that came up just through sales and they're stepping into a big time, like, trying to really oversee marketing, and they're not supported by the right people around them that really know their stuff in marketing, that's tough. So it's, I think it's context specific to the company and the talent.
So I'm just selfishly curious what you both think about SDRs and inside sales teams reporting to marketing versus to sales. Because this is a very controversial idea.
Mm-hmm. You want to go first, Brogan, or you want me to go?
Yeah, I'll give it a go. I personally like it reporting into sales, in particular, right? So with me in the enterprise segment, and we have we're in an account styled strategy. It's not a mass market style strategy, and this speaks to this organization of the goals. And I actually I believe that the different tiers and the different go-to-market approach play a big part into how you're organizing everything. I talk a lot of, I guess now the word is revenue orchestration. Mm. I've always called it a flight control tower. And here's where I'm going to answer that BDR question is, I like to know where all the planes are in the air all the time, mm-hmm. right? And so generally with my accounts in the enterprise, with my BDRs, I want them working in conjunction with marketing, but we want to be styling that very personalized outreach and the handcrafted strategies that are going to go along to go. Now, you can do that at scale, of course, in the way that you work with your marketing, but I feel most of the daily actions are sales driven in nature, in the way that you're piquing a lot of that curiosity, and the way you're leading those initial conversations, and the way you're finding those trigger events. Those are very sales oriented to me. So, and I love that really clean handoff in partnership with their AEs. So again, I don't mean to be nebulous, but it could depend. I could see other like mass market type, SMB type plays where it might make sense, but I've always liked that one-on-one relationship with sales where they're driving it together at that, at the handoff point to a person where they're taking it forward. Being with sales.
Yeah, I mean, I can see, and I think I read in Gartner recently is something like a 50-50 split now almost that it's in marketing or in sales, and I see the value of both. I think if you do have good alignment, which I feel our team is pretty aligned, it doesn't matter as much if you have a lot of joint meetings together and the teams meet up and marketing and sales aren't marketing and sales, but more one unit. And you have several meetings, each week where you figure out your problems and push the obstacles aside and you're working as a team, then, it doesn't matter who does the one-on-ones, because that's what it comes down to. Like, who's going to do the one-on-ones? Okay, well, sales will do the one-on-ones or marketing. But if you're truly functioning as a team, then both teams should know exactly what's going on with both sides.
Yeah, I totally agree. If there's one takeaway, and you just reminded me of this, Steve, like when I think of this slide and I try to think of one way to sum up I guess my answer to it, or what I think of when I think of this conundrum, are we aligning strategy, et cetera, it's just the importance of, if you align the strategy properly, it's really driving the customer experience. If you're not aligning it properly, then you have a very disjunct customer experience throughout. And again, just the way my brain works, I'm visual, so I think of the flight control tower. However you want to visualize it, we need to know what the touch points are. We need to design the process together. I personally like to go by segment. Again, it depends on the company, because you're going to have different go-to-market strategies for each segment based on the scale that you're going out to. But then how are we coordinating that customer experience from the very first website visit to the very first chat interaction, all the way through? And is that planned in advance, or are we just throwing things against the wall? So if we're planning that in advance, then we have an aligned strategy, and that aligned strategy, in no uncertain terms, is driving the customer experience, pre-sale and during sale. So that's kind of when I think of this: align it to design the customer experience, and not the post-sale customer experience only.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head. It's visibility into what's happening in that customer journey. We keep like one master sheet from, as I mentioned in the beginning, from the beginning of the customer journey, literally all the way to the end, and it contains every single step and every variation. I mean, it's a beast. It's a monster. Like, you can scroll and scroll and scroll and see it. But whenever anything changes in the process, if the BDRs are going to send new emails out, if marketing is going to drop a different sequence or test something new, if product is going to change the in-app onboarding, this is the single version of the truth. And so at any point in time, like right now, and I can share it actually if people want to see it. So at any point in time, I could go in and there we go. So at any point in time, I can go in here and I can see what the final version is of the entire, let's see, this gets crazy, of the entire journey, no matter where they are or what they're doing in each pathway. I won't zoom in too close on all these parts, because these are all our metrics for the website and conversions and everything else, but like direct buy and powered by BombBomb Pass, and then like all the email sequences and what days that they come, and the exactly what the email looks like and links to it in the videos. And so, if sales is like, well, we want to switch this up, they know that they can come here and see how it's going to relate to the marketing content and the marketing pieces that are going out around it, and make sure that it's not stepping on any toes. And I think if you don't have something in one place, even though, and I would love to hear everyone else's thoughts and plans on what they do, because this is definitely not the most elegant solution whatsoever, but at least it's there. at least there's a place to go to look, to understand what's happening.
It's great. Great.
You know, I know we've spent a lot of time kind of looking at different almost best practices, different strategies. I think we should go to our second poll of looking at, and I'm about to launch it. What is our number one requirement from the marketing team? So for those of us that are in sales or leading teams, what are we looking for? For me, better quality leads is just, I think it's a really easy cop out. It's really easy to say, oh, well, I didn't hit my number because I didn't get good enough leads. So I think it's definitely something I would pick, but I also think it's an excuse. It's an internal conflict I have daily. More leads, better training. I really like that. Yeah. And if there's something that's not on here, drop it into the chat. What else are you looking for? What else would you want from marketing?
And while we're waiting for the results to come in, Shelly, that's great. Yeah, I love hearing the questions that people ask. I think it was John that mentioned the previous 3 questions with deep dives. We call them parking lots. So like if we get into a topic, it's like, oh, we should parking lot that, and then we can talk about it later.
Okay, I'll give it a little bit longer. So we got better training, more leads. I definitely think we have more salespeople on this call. Because majority says here, I'm going to end the poll and launch or share the results. I would like to see from you guys in the chat. Is this more sales heavy? I don't know.
That's funny. And so it begs the question, what if the question was the opposite? What's the number one requirement you want to see from your sales teams to marketing? So that's one of the findings we'll discuss.
Okay, I will stop sharing. Okay. That's really interesting. You know what I think is super interesting is the lowest category was wanting more visibility. I think that's really interesting because that's something we've just spent, 30 minutes talking about, was how much power we could have and how much more successful our teams would be if we had that visibility, right? And that's really what alignment, it's a very key component. So I think that's really interesting.
Maybe because the answers, a lot of people picked A, that they have great alignment, and it's probably why they're here at a session like this to further refine and tune their alignment with sales and marketing. It's the people that don't have great alignment would want more visibility. And so it kind of makes sense based off of the group, the cohort that we have here and their responses. Yeah.
So I'll go ahead and go to key finding number 3, and I'll just read it out loud. And this is, of course, related to the poll that we just put up. So key finding number 3 of the sales marketing interlock study is sales. Number one demand from marketing is more visibility into upper funnel activities. Marketing's number one demand of sales is more visibility into lower funnel activities. So this kind of poses the question why, and then how do we better assist with that? Like what's the big takeaway that we can action on from this? Go ahead, Steve, thoughts?
Oh, I was going to answer Dean's question, or at least speak to
great.
Dean's question, which is semi-related but not really. So I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, go for it. Let's check it out. See.
Because he said marketing qualified leads need to be more than a name, email, company, and a web form. And right. I agree with that wholeheartedly. And I think that's why, going back to one of the things that we said earlier, there has to be consensus on an ideal customer profile, and there has to be action and motivation along with that. Like they had to perform something. If it's within your ICP, you've identified your ICP, or your target account list, if you're doing, account-based marketing, like these are the people that would benefit from our product. Like, that because you created that list and you targeted these people. And if you do have their name, email, and company, and they showed interest in your product, like I think you need those other layers in there. It has to be a part of the ICP, and they had to show some type of interest. Can't be a purchase list, or someone filled out a form to get a prize on some trade show or event center or something like that. Like that's certainly not a sales qualified lead. But
that also goes back to that point number one of agreed upon definitions and KPIs, right? So if we agree that really we're putting more weight on actionable opportunities than we are on name, email, company, which sounds obvious, but again, there's a lot of companies there's a disconnect just right there at the most basic part of the process. So getting that upfront agreement on what are our definitions and the KPIs we share to hit that success, and hopefully that alone is not one of them. One other thing I'll just add to this too, that's kind of interesting to think about when you think about upper funnel, lower funnel sales and marketing visibility, is there's a lot of different demand models, right? So there's a lot of in the last X amount of years, I don't know what's it been, decade or more, there's been a lot more of the product driven demand and the freemium models. So you get a lot of junk in there, right? So how do you filter that between the marketing teams, the BDRs, and sales? And that's very different than a lead that might come in from an ABM campaign, right? And having the visibility into what happened there. The more complex view of the upper funnel that the sales team would want to know would probably come from that, the product-driven demand, where there's a lot of pre-human interaction with website and chat and that kind of thing. And so that's really what sales yearns for when you get a lead that seems fairly nebulous, that has been said to be qualified by the definitions of our company. Why is that? How is it? What have they done? What have they seen? And that's pretty hard to track. And I think, again, salespeople yearn for that. They want to understand, were they on a certain website for a long time, on a certain page for a long time? Did they view any case studies? Did they sit on our pricing page? Did they download the free trial? How much time did they spend in the free trial? Wouldn't that be fascinating to know before you pick up the phone to try to get that discovery call or whatever it is? So you're right. Food for thought.
Yeah, I'd love to hear the audience's opinion. Since we had so many A's, what type of visibility do you have into the other team's funnel? Is it through regular meetings? Is it through a tool or a system that you're using? How are you getting that visibility into the upper funnel or lower funnel activities? Is it like something do you have something better that we can adopt over here that you would like to share as well? Because we'd love to hear it.
I really like what Jim wrote. He had their marketing team take turns doing sales lead follow-ups for several days to better understand what the lead and how it becomes an opportunity. I know Steve, and then Steve's follow-up question: who received the commission? I love that.
Oh, that's awesome.
Hey, when you can walk in someone else's shoes, and that's a great idea. And even like, I don't know how you would do it, but kind of flipping the role back on the other end and having salespeople, just go through the process of developing marketing campaigns and content, or just working in conjunction. Just understanding the other person is the key to having a one team, right? Understanding that they're trying to do their best and believing that they're trying to do their best is so important in that relationship that sales and marketing has together.
Yeah,
I love
that's for sure, Laura. Yeah.
Yeah, especially Laura, we're going to talk about that too. As you get bigger, you have a lot of different systems as well, and a lot of different departments or organizations or product organizations within it that all have different systems, but the customer wants the same journey.
Yeah.
Easier said than done, right? Well, should I go into the next key finding here? Okay. I'm looking at the time. Oh, sorry. 2:50.
I love Jen. It did drive great conversation, which I am sure it did, Jim.
All right. So key finding number 4, customer journey is the second most frequently discussed topic between sales and marketing, but just 35% of professionals think their company has a 360-degree view of it. Why is that? What can we do to solve that? I just, because I just mentioned it, I think number one, this all starts with the shared strategy. You can't just throw in systems or try to unify systems without the shared strategy and the definitions. It almost goes in the order of the findings that we've talked about. Once you have the shared strategy, the shared definitions and points, then you've got to agree on how that customer journey is going to be handled from a technical and a vendor standpoint, right? What CRM is it going to be in? What is your success platform going to look like? Are we doing some type of sales engagement platform up front? Right? I mean, there's 100 different things. So that is where it becomes really tricky, and I think that's where you see that big drop off to 35% of professionals. And again, to Laura's point, like, when you get big, it gets crazy complex.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Sorry. You go first.
No, I was going to say, I shared our customer journey. As a smaller company, we have 150 employees here at BombBomb, and so it's still a relatively small company. It is, I would certainly say, it's much easier to have everyone on board and make sure that the information is shared and it actually reached its intended audience, as you're going through the customer journey and the message mapping, and that they have the right messaging for the right customer. There's agreed upon ICP. Like it's certainly easier, I would say.
And I think really this goes back to, Brogan, what you were talking about very, very long ago of definitions, right? What does customer journey look like? Does the customer journey begin whenever an SDR calls them, or does it begin whenever they have their first little nugget of information of what your company is? And does it continue to the customer success handoff, or does it continue past renewals? And so I think really looking at what a whole customer journey is, and this is something that we're working through right now at Sales Hackers, even though we don't sell the community, it's how do we make sure that our community members have the absolute best experience from the first time they hear about us, and what are we making, what are we doing to make sure that every single touch that they get is something incredibly valuable that makes them feel appreciated, that makes them feel special, important, and like this is something that they need in their lives. And the same thing in sales, right? Is as soon as we drop them into a sequence, what are we doing to make sure that every single touch, whether it be through video prospecting and adding those custom personal messages, to sending swag, whatever it is, there's so many opportunities out there, and this really should be the easiest to become most aligned on when you think about it, because having a successful customer journey is a win-win for sales and a win-win for marketing. So it's just really interesting, because I would have, I'm not surprised by the number. I just would have wanted a higher number.
One thought that I'd offer is, of course, if I didn't say it earlier, we are a customer 360 degree view platform, but I only say that because we do a lot of tech landscape evaluations within a company, and there's a lot of great technologies that candidly you could argue compete with our technologies, and I understand exactly why they're in there, and we would never recommend pulling those out. Like, they make perfect sense for the context that they're using it, and it could be a large percentage of their tech stack that's like that. But a very common theme that I see is that folks have they overcomplicate certain portions of the tech stack. I've seen sales engagement platforms that have thousands of flows going through them, or they overthink what they think they're going to want at the beginning of the evaluation process, and it's not really right size. So they bought this huge solution that barely got implemented, and they're really using 30 to 40% of the feature set. And so I would just think about, trying to keep it simple. I know knowing this audience is something that we've all heard and learned a lot, but keep it as streamlined and as clean and as simple as you can, and don't overcomplicate it at first. Keep the customer journey as the focal point. The last thing I'll say on this is, a lot of times people will say, well, we have XYZ feature in this that's not in that. And I always say, well, if you were to go to market and do an ROI analysis about if you would buy that one feature in that one product for the price that you're paying for that one product, in lieu of doing the customer 360, would you do it? Or are you really putting too much weight into certain features and attributes versus the customer journey first. So just things to think about as you're looking at the tech stack. And again, we use tons of adjacent technologies, and they all have their times and places in the right environment, for sure. And it's never going to be perfect. But the question then is, how can you integrate them more perfectly with that customer first mindset, the customer journey first mindset? Yeah.
You know, Patricia dropped a really good question in here. Do your sales and marketing teams have a playbook, toolkit, something that is simple? Is there anything like that that you're using right now that works really well?
Yeah. And I'll give a big shout out to Winning by Design. Mm-hmm. We use Winning by Design. They helped us create playbooks for onboarding, for CS, for sales. It's going to sound extensive, but again, it's all about documentation, right? It's about having a single version of the truth. We have this 140 slide, it's a Google slide deck with the entire playbook. For sales, there's marketing components in there. We're working with them with marketing as well. And all the playbooks actually go together, so they connect to one another. You have your sales playbook, but that actually connects to the onboarding and the CS playbook. I'm a big fan of documentation, and that can fix most of the problems, because where most of the problems arise between sales, marketing, CS, or any other department is lack of clarity on what was done, what needs to be done, and what you need to do. And if you have documentation of that, then everyone can see where you are and work towards improving it in the betterment of your process.
That's great. Totally agree.
Oh, good, Laura.
Well, good. I know. Yeah. I know we have just a few minutes, and what should we skip the poll to get to the number 5 here?
Yeah, we've talked a lot about some challenges, so.
We might have jumped the gun getting into some of this, but right, the number one challenge to sales and marketing alignment is fragmented customer data. I've spoken about this a little bit, so any other comments or thoughts? And I certainly have a couple additional ones, but any other comments from the audience here? What do you find hard about it, or what's most difficult in your environment?
One of the questions we actually got, I think might tie into this a little bit, is what's a good tech stack addition to help with this problem? Or just in general, and I'd love to hear from both of you, what are some good tech stack additions to help with this cross-functional alignment issue?
I mean, I'd be remiss if I didn't say our product. Most people think that video messaging is for prospecting. Mm-hmm. And it's to get attention. It's to open the doors for cold emails. And everyone is so focused on using it for that, because it does get attention if you use it the right way. But honestly, the real power of asynchronous video messaging is all the times where, like, we're all working in remote environments now. You can't get on that Zoom meeting all day long. It's hard to find times in people's calendar, but you need to communicate more wholly and more fully, or you might need to communicate with emotion or nuance. And sending it through a short video in Slack, or sending it through a short video in email, or dropping a short video, in LinkedIn, if it's outside of your company, is just a much more effective way to communicate as people are dispersed all over the country. And again, bringing that team together and going all the way back to clarity in your communication. Clarity is king. It's important. Clear beats clever any day of the week. And videos allow you to be more clear, allows you to share things. And so I'll say that for a little plug there, but it is important. We use video more internally than we use video externally.
Yeah, interesting. I love video personally. I'm a visual learner. So my thought on this is, regardless of your, so the answer to this is clearly it's because our systems aren't talking, right? So I would think of this, Freshworks aside, other platforms aside, build it around a unified customer profile, where you're super entrenched on a certain technology, whether it's your CRM or your engagement platform or whatever it is. Keep those. That's great. But try to find places that you can consolidate this unified customer profile. Start building your tech stack around that in different views with that. And your first questions could be, wherever you're keeping that unified customer profile, can the other technology integrate with that to help build that unified customer profile in a way that that profile can move through the journey, right? So I think that's a pretty vendor agnostic, statement, and happy to help with that as well in any way that we can. But that to me is a way to look at it. Start with your tech stack, thinking about the unified customer profile. Anything that's in addition to that needs to complement that and be able to integrate with it throughout.
Absolutely.
And then you get the data.
Absolutely. Well, we're at time. I don't know about y'all, but this absolutely flew by. I can't even believe that we're already here. But oh my gosh, this has been probably one of my favorite discussions so far that we've had on Sales Hacker. I know that we had a few more things to discuss, but hopefully we can save that for next time. If any of you have any extra questions around this, any extra thoughts, I'm going to drop a link in the chat where you can go and ask those questions today and get some answers. Brogan, if people have questions for you and want to learn more about Freshworks, what is the best way to reach you?
Either through, well, here, I'll just drop my email in chat. That's really the best way.
Perfect.
Yeah. And thanks, everybody. Great questions. I saw some questions from individuals I'd like to follow up with as well. But yeah, it's just Brogan.Taylor at Freshworks. Surprise, surprise. There you go.
And Steve, sorry.
I was just gonna say the audience makes this. Like, those questions were great. They were challenging. They had us, thinking on our toes. So thanks, everybody. That was fun. I appreciate the group on this.
Awesome. Yes, you will definitely get connected with Brogan. You will definitely get a copy of the survey. It's going to come out, I believe, in the second part of this year. Or honestly, all this week's just melding all together. So I'm not even sure what part of the year we're in right now. But sometime this year you will get it. But this has been so much fun. I'm so happy that we got to spend this time. Thank you, Brogan. Thank you, Freshworks. And thank you so much, Steve. This has been awesome. Don't forget, you'll get this recording. So keep an eye out on your email in the next 24 hours, and it'll also have the deck in here as well. So we'll talk with y'all soon. Thanks, everyone. See you next week.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye,
Take
y'all.
care.